bodybuilding is a sport. So I remember I used to go to bodybuilding competitions to watch. And I remember a girlfriend saying to me, don't you feel fat when you go to these things? I said, when you go, because I lived in Eugene, Oregon, and so we had the Prefontaine Classic, which was the track meet. I said, when you go to the Prefontaine, do you feel slow? It's a sport, right? It's a sport. When you go to an NBA game, do you feel like you're not a great basketball player? No. When you meet your friends on a Saturday, you feel like you're great. You're not comparing yourself to LeBron James.
I'm not afraid to write my brand new story. And when changes find their way to me, I can keep it moving. I'm not afraid to celebrate my glory. And when challenges grace my path, I know I can face another day. Inside, I rise, daring to learn. With Fox After 40.
What's up, you guys? Welcome back to Fox After 40, where we focus on women's wellness from head to toe. Today, I have a very good friend of mine here, Dianna Moore. She is gorgeous, and her physique is unmatched. I think it is so beautiful. And when she told me her age, I thought she was lying. I was like, there's no way. I thought she was in her 30s when we met. And then she's like, no, girl, how old are you, Dianna?
50.
You're 50. But you got the body of like a 25-year-old. Looks amazing. And I remember her telling me her bodybuilding story, that she's lifted heavy for a very long time with weights for workouts, that you've done bodybuilding competitions and fitness competitions, and that you actually had a 20-plus year corporate history with Boeing.
Yep.
And now you're an executive coach. And I was like, and your energy you radiated such beautiful energy when we met. I was like, I have to know her. I was like, I feel like I want to be like this. Like, I was like, this is aspirational. Like, this is like, people scare you when it comes to aging. It's like, if that 50 looks like that, I want to be 50, all right? Not 32. So, Dianna, please tell everybody your background, how you got here, and then where you found weightlifting and bodybuilding in your career.
Yeah, so professional background, I'm an executive coach. I had almost 25 years in aerospace, all different kinds of things in business. I left that to do a startup. And then after the startup, I went full-time in executive coaching. I've had a practice since 2012, but that was on the side. And so, when you do something on the side, it can only get so much of your attention, and you start having a wait list, and you can only help so many people. So now I'm having the best time. I see myself as a partner to my clients in winning, and winning really is a process. It really is. And so it's just, I'm having the best time. My clients are having the best time. But as far as weightlifting, it's something I found when I was 19.
Wow.
So when I was 19, I had a 1-year-old. I got pregnant my very first year of college. I had more support for not having my son than I did for having him. And as part of just how I'm wired, literally my motto became, watch me and I'll show you. And that had been my North Star for so many years, was just to prove everybody wrong. We weren't going to be a statistic. In fact, we were going to be better than if we were a 2-parent home. So I found the gym. Actually, I had a girlfriend who she'd taken me to some, like aerobics class. And I went to a gym, and it just happened to be, so this is 1994. Were you born there?
Yes.
You were 1.
I was 3.
Oh, you were 3?
Okay, I was 3. All right.
So I walked in, and it just happened to be that the managers, the woman, it was a man and woman. The woman was a fitness competitor, and the man was a bodybuilder. So it attracted all of these women that were into lifting weights. And I remember seeing these women and saying, the only time I had seen legs like that were at the ballet. And these women really just took me under their wing. I was in community college. They knew I had a baby. It was the first time that I was actually ever put on a program. So they gave me a weightlifting program and a meal plan. I remember at that time I was drinking a Pepsi every day.
Okay.
Yeah, and they were like, okay, well, how about every other day? And it was just a gradual thing, and I started to notice the changes in my body. But beyond that, I will say that I got my whole life in the gym, literally, because what you find is when you're a weightlifter as well. So think about this. Maybe you are doing curls with 20 pounds, and you're doing 3 sets of 15. And maybe by rep 11, you're like, this is impossible. It is really, really hard and you want to give up. But if you keep form and you keep going, eventually you have a breakthrough. And that 20 pounds, you could pick those up all day and you graduate to 25. Guess what? That's how life is. If you don't give up, you stay the course, you'll have a breakthrough. So that's how I found the gym. And it's just been part of literally how I live my life. When I'm preparing for something, when I'm wanting to expand my business, I go to the gym because that's where the answers come. It's meditation for me.
Oof, okay. Before you had a 1-year-old at 19 and then you started going to the gym.
Yes.
For me, and I know this was my excuse for a long time, I couldn't work out because of my kids. How were you making this happen with your 1-year-old and going to the gym?
Well, my mom. So
Okay.
my mom would watch my son. And then when he got a little bit older, there was daycare at the gym. In fact, most gyms have daycare. And you can pay a couple dollars, for them to stay. It's like 2 hours.
Yeah.
Actually, I have 2 granddaughters now. So my son and his wife do the same thing. They drop their girls off at the play center and they go to work out.
So have you consistently weightlifted from 19? Like what happened?
Yeah.
Did you ever take breaks? And then when did you do your first competition?
So sure, there were breaks for sure. I got a degree in accounting, which is not an easy thing to do without a baby, but with a baby and always as a single mom, different things happened. So, I was always a physical person, I'll say.
Yeah.
The one thing I didn't mention is I was raised on a farm as well. So hard work was just part of how I was raised.
Oh, I didn't know that. Wait, what kind of farm?
It really is homesteading property. Have you seen Little House on the Prairie?
Yeah.
No electricity, outhouse, born at home. That's how I lived till I was 7. So when you're in that environment, everybody has to work. If there's a dog, it's because the dog is there for protection or what have you. The horses, my dad was a logger with horses. There's a whole bigger story there. But it'll just say that work ethic was always part of who I am and also hard work. It's just part of your value growing up. So, yeah. But yeah, I've weightlifted since 19. Like I said, some breaks circumstantially, but never really stopped lifting because it's actually part of my identity. I see myself as a weightlifter. And at one point I thought I saw myself as a bodybuilding competitor, and I did that for a few years. You asked about my first competition.
Yeah, but now I want to ask you another question.
Okay,
I will
please.
get to the first competition. So I've gotten the feedback that I'm too masculine, and
Interesting.
yeah,
Who's telling you this, men?
a few people, I imagine these people are intimidated, But have you ever gotten that feedback that you're too masculine, that you shouldn't lift weights, it makes you less ladylike? Like, have people said these things to you?
That's really, really interesting. Being masculine is not about the way your body looks. It is about an energy. So I'm not surprised, being a businesswoman and a CEO, that people have said that you're masculine. Now, people, what they'll put it to, because they're not used to seeing women. You have to understand, right? This is the first time really in history that women, we can do anything that we want to do. Even for me, as a few years older than you, growing up, it still was, okay, yeah, you could go to school and all of that, and you should go to school. But people would always ask me, who are you dating? When you're going to get married, this whole thing, like the career was after. But now with women, we literally can do anything, including if we want to have babies, we can go and get whatever we need to do for that too as well. So people will say it's weightlifting, but it's really your masculine energy because of being a CEO. Now I have a whole thing about that as well, and I'll just drop this here. Think about Queen Sheba. Think about the queens in Africa. They were so beautiful, crowns, right? These big crowns and jewelry and everything else, but yet they were still ruling. So we don't have to rule through yelling. We don't have to rule through being aggressive. You can rule from your femininity. And that is something that I've been working on. So hopefully that will be helpful to you as well.
That is helpful. Okay, so your first competition.
Yes.
How old were you when you first did your first competition? How many have you done?
3.
3, okay.
It's a lot.
It's a lot?
It's a lot.
Walk me through that process of, because I have it as a goal of mine. I don't know if I'm gonna do it for my 40th birthday or my 35th or my 50th. I don't know. But what is the process of a competition, and what led you to your first one, and how old were you?
Yeah. So I was 38.
So you've weightlifted for almost 20 years before you even did a competition.
Yes,
Wow.
but it's very different things. So this is one of my, I'll say, pet peeves around the whole bodybuilding community. There's weightlifting, and every woman should do this for health because it improves your bone density. There's so many markers, blood markers, and different things that help your blood panels. Every woman, and I mean every woman, should weightlift. I really mean that. As far as bodybuilding goes, bodybuilding is a sport. So I remember I used to go to bodybuilding competitions to watch. And I remember a girlfriend saying to me, don't you feel fat when you go to these things? I said, when you go, because I lived in Eugene, Oregon, and so we had the Prefontaine Classic, which was the track meet. I said, when you go to the Prefontaine, do you feel slow? It's a sport, right? It's a sport. When you go to an NBA game, do you feel like you're not a great basketball player? No. When you when you meet your friends on a Saturday, you feel like you're great. You're not comparing yourself to LeBron James. I think this is a big problem, and I think it's one of the things that's actually come from social media. Is people say, oh, I want to lose 30 pounds and I'm going to do a bodybuilding competition. You should not do that, because it is a sport. There's a lot of crazy things that go on, and on top of that, if you're not careful, you will have an eating disorder.
Oh, wow.
So actually, if I was coaching you, and maybe I will, right, at some point, but we'd really want to uncover why it is that you want to do a bodybuilding competition. If it really is just about showing off your body, let's get you to a car show, and you can sit on a great car because you got a body for that anyways.
Not to give me on a car, okay?
Yes,
Post it up.
yes.
I'll be on a calendar. No, I'm kidding.
I'm telling you, seriously, the Curlmix, the curly girl calendar. That would be a thing, Kim.
Oh, man. You get to watch all the Curlmixers. Y'all want that? Let us know in the comments. Y'all want the calendar?
Yes.
Oh, my goodness. Okay, so that's very good. Thank you for making that distinction, because I didn't know
very
that
different.
bodybuilding is a sport and we should treat it as such. If you've enjoyed this episode of Fox After 40 and want to get notified about the next episode when it drops, make sure to go to curlmix.com and sign up for our mailing list. We'll notify you whenever a new episode comes out. Why did you get into it then?
So for me, back to being 19 and finding this gym, it was called Better Bodies in Eugene, Oregon. Again, the managers, one was a fitness competitor and one was a bodybuilder. Now that's a distinction. People that are listening to this that know about bodybuilding, they'll know what that means, because now there's all these categories that women compete in. But back then there was fitness, which means you had a cheerleading or gymnastics background. So you did a whole routine and also had an amazing body that we see now on stages. Or you were a bodybuilder. You cannot get that without taking testosterone for those women. And so those are the only two categories. We could talk about the business of bodybuilding and think about this. If you think about the number of women that would be willing to do a fitness competition and had the right background, or the number of women that would able to do a bodybuilding competition, like truly bodybuilding, it's a very small percentage of people. Yeah. So if you want to increase your revenue, how do you increase your customer base? You make it more mainstream. So that's where we've got bikini, we got figure, all these other categories came because it's a revenue opportunity. I mean, I saw that as a business person. Nobody said that to me. It's just pretty obvious.
Yeah.
But what made me want to do it is back to paying homage to the women that I felt like got me through my whole life. I mean, literally, again, 19 on welfare. This was back to when you pulled the food stamps, they were paper, and you pull them out. You look around at the grocery store, you like see a cute guy, you're like, okay, let me go and find something else until they're gone, because you have to pull these things out. And so for me, it was like later, and I had some success, I had some time, because it takes a lot of time, and I had the resources. It's not cheap. This was my way to say, these are the women that have gotten me through my life. Beyond the women that were at the gym, I started reading this magazine called Oxygen Magazine. Mm-hmm. It's actually still out now, but then it was really, really geared towards women that were competing. Okay. Now it's still there, but a little bit more mainstream, and the editors and different things have changed, as you can imagine. But it was like, this is what's got me through. And I also wanted to see what it would take. Yeah. I knew about nutrition growing up on the farm and just how I was raised. I knew about weightlifting. I didn't know how to use food strategically. So food you can use as science. Think about this. Well, you're in the business of mixing things together, right? Mm-hmm. So when you mix different elements together, you've probably tried to get the consistency that you have with Curlmix. You've probably have tried different things, and some of them was too runny, too thick, it wouldn't come out of the bottle, right? Yeah. The same thing. In order to get the physique that you want in certain way, and for bodybuilding standards, it is a scientific formula. You don't eat what you like. You don't eat what you have a taste for. You eat what gets you what you need. Weightlifting, the same thing. I could take anybody's body and tailor it based on, people want curves. And maybe you've seen, because I used to have a body transformation business. So I don't know if you've seen any of my previous clients, but I've had a client featured on bodybuilding.com.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So this particular client, she started when she was 46 or 48, I can't remember, when we transformed her body. She had what would be considered a very boxy waist. Okay. Right? So if I'm trying to give you an hourglass figure, I can't pull a rib out, but what I could do is I could develop your shoulders, I could develop your lats. So it gives the appearance, once we get some of the body fat lowered, it gives the appearance of a tiny waist. So you can literally use weights like clay to give people the mold and then pair that with food. It's literally amazing.
And that's why we titled this episode, Fire Your Cosmetic Surgeon and Start Weightlifting. Sure. So for how long, so your clients, what ages were they? What were they kind of experiencing in life? When did they come to you? And then you said you used to do fitness, and then I'm assuming you transitioned to executive coaching later. Tell me more about that.
Well, it's all been. So this is my big thing in my coaching practice, is that we ought to not live a compartmentalized life. We're one person. So you're a CEO, you're also a weightlifter, you're also, like me, an amateur Latin dancer.
Okay, I love it.
Right, but we ought to be able to be ourselves wherever we go. And so, I had my whole weightlifting thing. In fact, when I started my body transformation business, I started an Instagram. And I didn't want my corporate job to find out, because it would not be appearance to be in line with our corporate values.
Right.
But I wanted all the clients to find me. So that was like a whole stressful thing. Like, I want to expand my business, but I don't want to get fired from my job.
Right.
Right. Because people see a bikini as somehow sexual, but it's obviously not that, right? It was part of the sport. So yeah, I mean, I started my aerospace career when I was 23, right out of college. So I was already weightlifting. It was just one of the things that I did, as a lot of people do, right? Yeah. Go to the gym. And then, I was probably, 18 years into my career, maybe it was more like 15 years before I started doing bodybuilding.
So and thank you for that. So yeah. There's someone listening to this episode right now, and she's like, I've never lifted weights before. Yeah. I don't know where to start. Should I just go and pick up the 5-pound dumbbells when I walk into the gym? I don't know what I'm doing. Everyone's going to be judging me and looking at me. How often do I go? I should just get on the treadmill. That's easier. Mm-hmm. How does someone get started with weightlifting? Sure. What do they do?
Well, we live in a time now that no matter what your budget is, you could start. Because if you don't have any money or very little money, you could go to the library and get on YouTube University, right? And learn. Mm-hmm. And watch there. But if you do have a little bit of means, and I mean, maybe it's like $85 an hour, if you've never lifted weights, I would suggest that you have a trainer first, because a trainer is going to teach you how to lift weights properly. That is really the job of a trainer. A lot of times people will say, I want to, they want the physique of a bodybuilder, but they're with a trainer. That may or may not happen, because a trainer, again, is teaching you how to lift weights. They're teaching you how to get more fit. Yeah. And the discipline of it, but they're not necessarily tailoring your body. So if someone wants to get started and you can't afford to get a trainer, get a trainer. It doesn't have to be forever. I've had times in my life where I had a trainer and times when I didn't. And it was even my last trainer, it wasn't because I wanted to do bodybuilding. It was just I wanted to take my training to the next level.
And when you talk about weightlifting, can you explain the difference between picking up the small dumbbells, versus like the heavy load-bearing type of weightlifting? Because I just want people to understand, we're not just saying like do some push-ups. We're not just saying like try to do a pull-up. Like those are pieces of it. Sure. But the benefits of actually using heavy weights versus going lighter and maybe doing Pilates or those. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I would say there's a place for everything. But like anything, you have to understand what's the objective that you want to achieve, and then do whatever that is. Again, back to processes and systems.
Most people want to look good. They want to have the curves. They want to be fit. They want to be able to play with their kids. They want to be able to look sexy in a dress, Yeah,
for sure. Weightlifting and heavy weightlifting. So weightlifting literally will shape your body. Mm-hmm. So if you're somebody who wants curves, you want a booty, you want thicker thighs, you're going to get that through weightlifting, and of course eating as well. But the eating is important. But definitely, I mean, picking up like lower weights, smaller weights, I would say if you're doing some kind of rehabilitation, you've had an injury, you're trying to get mobility, that kind of stuff, absolutely, that's great. And there's also some research that shows and that you could use like light weights, but for so many reps, controlled and with good posture and form, and you can get some benefits there. But you really want to get what you're talking about, the curves and all of that, you got to pick up heavy weights. And there's so much science that just shows that also, like I said, bone density. I say that weightlifting truly is like, it's like anti-aging. It's an anti-aging. Mm-hmm. It is like, it just, everybody that I know that lifts weights looks great. On one level or another. It doesn't mean everybody's got a super low body fat percentage or anything else. But the other thing, the byproduct, you just have a confidence. You can tell somebody who lifts weights because they walk into a room like, I'm here.
Powerful.
Yes, for sure.
Strong.
Absolutely.
If you've gotten any value from listening to Fox After 40, you learned a beauty tip, you've gotten advice, you shared the episode with a friend, please do us a favor and leave us a review on Spotify and Apple. It goes a very long way in helping us continue to build the podcast. Dianna, I saw on social that you posted your implant story.
Yes.
Can you tell us, you know, even with the bodybuilding and the weightlifting, you know, looking amazing, was there, what made you get the implants? Like, and what happened to you what led to you taking them out?
Sure. So I got implants because I had a child early on. And I'll just say this, I breastfed him for 18 months. Pretty much, my son was 30 pounds at 6 months.
Oh, wow.
Think about how old your children are and how much they weigh.
My kids are 6 and 40 pounds.
My son was 30 pounds at 6 months.
That is crazy.
And by the way, walked at 9 months. So he wasn't like he was unhealthy. It was all from breast milk. But that said, you can imagine that my breast took a beating from that much eating. So I was young, right? I was, 21 at this point, but my breast to me looked like I was 80. I just wanted to look normal. I felt like I was hiding a secret under my shirt. That's why I got implants.
Okay.
So, but I started off in Seattle, Washington. I got saline implants. They were relatively small. My surgeon said, even though you are a statuesque person, you have a small rib cage. We're all made different. So she said, you can't really take that much there. So I did that. I moved to LA. And then, you know, I have friends that have implants, and I had one girlfriend specifically, and her implants just looked amazing. And I was like, I want those. So I went to her surgeon, and I got silicone implants. Everything was fine. And I thought everything was fine. And so 10 years went by, and I went back because it was time to replace them. That's one of the agreements. If you get silicone implants, is that you should, it's just all about risk management, right? You should replace them every 10 years. So I didn't realize anything was wrong because I was getting older. I was having brain fog. I was having memory loss, but I also was managing $1 billion satellite program. I had a kid in college, stress, you're getting older. So of course memory loss and brain fog. But I remember being at work and like very simple sentences and not being able to call on a word. Like it could be, an apple or something. You're just like, what's that called? So that was happening more and more. So went to get the consultation to get my implants replaced. And we know our phones are listening to us, right? So somehow I go on Google, and then all of a sudden this Facebook group with over 100,000 women that are all sick from implants.
Wow.
So I don't know how I got there. I have to say that it must have been Apple that got me to that website, because I don't know how I got there. But literally I started reading, and I was like, oh my God, it's hiding in plain sight. So all implants, whether they're silicone or saline, have a silicone shell. Silicone is an adjuvant in the same way that heavy metals are. So why is it that when people have heavy metals, they do all these things to get them out of their bodies? Because they bring on an autoimmune response. So silicone does the same thing. There's lots of people that say, oh, I'm fine. You are fine. Maybe you are fine. But your immune system is working on overdrive every single day. So your life is slowly having a degradation. You may just not realize it. And you may just think it's part of aging.
Wow.
So once I saw that, I'm like, oh my God. I also felt like a hypocrite. And this is no shade to women who are in fitness that have implants. I get it. I totally get it. You lose a lot of body fat. And part of our society says that having breasts as a woman is part of, being feminine. I don't agree. But that's what we said. So it's people's choice. But when I saw it, I'm like, oh my God, I'm over here telling people they need to eat organic and eat whole foods. And here I am, I have a toxic bags over my heart and lungs. And so for me, it was an easy choice after that. Then it was just finding a surgeon that would take them out in the way that is protocol when you have what's called BII, or breast implant illness. Not all surgeons believe in it. If you go through, there's actually a great documentary right now. I don't recall the name, but it's on Netflix. And it literally talks about how there really was very little research on having implants in women, obviously. But they're plastic. They're looking for opportunities in which to use plastic.
Wow.
And so the impacts of women, to this day, the impacts of women having implants have not been studied. So the FDA in 2019, I think about in August, they updated their guidance to be able to say that, hey, surgeons, you need to go over these risks. You need to have people actually get the inserts, the inserts that come in boxes that tell you all the things that could happen, or the contents. We were never given those. Your surgeon just said, oh, you're fine. It was a medical device. And so they had it, but we never got it. So now the law has changed and surgeons have to get, obviously implants are still a multi-billion-dollar business. People are still getting them. I have friends that are like, I hear you, but I'm not sick and I don't want to take them out. That's fine. Maybe someday that will change.
Oh my gosh, Dianna, I didn't know. You're teaching me so much. Thank you.
Yeah.
I also know that you said you had a back surgery?
Yes.
What happened? Can you share?
Sure. I don't really know what happened, but I'll just say that, I was raised on a farm, grew up, horses. I always say I'm going to go to the grave with like nothing left. So I use my body.
Yeah.
So probably falling off horses, climbing trees, all those things. But I started having low back pain, and pain is like you've never felt before. I would have literally 5 live births back to back before I would have the back pain. It is like nothing else.
Wait, you would get pregnant and give birth 5 times?
Right, in a row.
It was, oh my God, it must have been debilitating.
It is. It
must have been like
next level.
Wow.
Next
okay.
level. Now, the thing that I will say, so I was having all these back issues. Having pain, was taking ibuprofen. I got up to 12 a day. That is like, so messes up your liver and kidneys, but it was just, and I was going to my doctor. When you go to a primary care doctor, everything takes time. You get an MRI, it takes time for it to get back. Then you got to get back on their schedule and all that. And so in the middle of that process, I had to go to the ER. I had to actually have them come and get me because I could not move. And, a whole nother topic, but I'll just say this because I want to validate what we go through as Black women. So I came in there, could not move at all. Literally had to come in a stretcher. The doctor comes in and says, I can give you some pain pills and then send you home. I'm like, no, I'm not going home. But I'm also an assertive woman, right? But not everybody, man or woman, is an assertive person, and not everybody feels good about being assertive with a doctor, right? So the doctor went to look at my MRI. He got it from my primary care, and then he came in and he was like, oh, we need a specialist for you. So they actually that was on a Saturday. They wanted to do the surgery on a Monday. Do your research, people. I looked up the doctor that was going to do the surgery, and I was like, his health scores aren't too good. So we won't be doing that. But within a month, I had surgery. And so what's really interesting is I had been on a wait list for my explant with my breast implants. That was January 23rd. But the sort of emergency back surgery happened on January 2nd. So I ended up having 2 major surgeries in the same month.
Oh my God. Okay.
So when I went in for the back surgery, I asked my doctor, I said, I have this other surgery planned. I've been on a wait list. I want it. And he was like, you know what? They're both major surgeries. He said, but at least you only have to have one time to recover, because if you do these surgeries separate, it's going to be a long time for both of them. So that was January of 2019.
Oh my goodness. So wait, I'm sorry, I've never had back surgery before. So are you like kind of laying in place for months?
No. You get up and walk. It depends. There's different surgeries. So mine was low back surgery. Okay. That L4, L5, which is sort of like right where your tailbone, right where your tramp stamp would be, as I said earlier.
Dianna said she got a tramp stamp, y'all. Oh, sorry.
In that same place.
Should we cut that out the pot?
It's all good. This is keeping it real. It was there. So what ended up happening with me is a part of my disc actually fell off into my nerve root. And so it was just like, as my doctor said, it was like a piece of crab meat that was in there. So every time it moved around, it was like hitting nerves. And so it was just terrible nerve pain.
Did he say they had anything to do with weightlifting at all?
So he didn't necessarily say that, but I will say this. So with me, there's always a lot of stories.
Yeah.
6 months before this happened, my dad was killed in an accident. Completely unexpected. My dad, 71, 40 feet up into a tree, which he got himself up in there. We're just all physically, able people, and health and fitness has been a part of all of our lives. So without going into all the details, my dad was then killed from that. So I I just, for me, going to the gym was like the thing. And then I just was having a hard time. I wasn't sleeping and just wasn't, it was just mourning, of course, going through grief.
Yeah.
And I was like, I need something. And the gym has always been my something. It's been sort of my therapy, although we all, I think, should have therapists as well. But it's been part of my therapy and my meditation. And so I did join this like muscle gaining program. And it was put on by a woman who is an IFBB pro. IFBB is one of the bodybuilding federations. This is kind of a PSA to anybody who is training anybody. You should make sure that you have a disclaimer around, hey, make sure you go to your doctor, make sure you're healthy. And this woman did not, but I did not, go back to her about any of this. Anyways, I said, I'm going to do every single thing that the program says to do. So part of it was, I see you like doing these squats of 300 pounds or what have you, which is
I try to stay
amazing.
under 250. I try not to go.
She said try to stay. That doesn't mean, that means she can do more.
But I don't do 300 or more unless I have an assist.
Sure.
And a trainer with me.
But the point is, you're strong enough to do it. Right. So I knew I had low back issues. I knew that I should not be squatting like that. But I was like, again, part of my just getting through this grief, I'm like, I'm going to do every single thing that it said to do. So I did. And what's interesting is I have a selfie the day that I know that I took my back to the next level. I had 3 plates on both sides. And I was like, ooh, I'm feeling super like, wow. And I know that was the beginning. So it wasn't really just the weightlifting. I mean, I was doing something I knew not to do because I already had back problems, but then just the accumulation of over the years. So I wouldn't say it's lifting weights.
Yeah.
I was already sort of, in this very vulnerable place and doing something I shouldn't have been doing.
No, and I love that you said that, Dianna, because people will listen to that season like, see, she lifted weights, and we should not. No.
Right.
Because you could also be like, well, I'm going to go from fasting to not eating, and that's actually starvation. You know what I mean?
For sure.
Which is not the same as fasting. And so weightlifting is good for you. It does build your body. It makes you more confident. It gives you longevity. It actually helps you live longer. But you also have to manage it, and you should also do it with the trainer, especially in the beginning. And if you're doing it with the trainer, let them know when things hurt. Let them know when, this is like, hey, I probably shouldn't, There are things that trainers would try to get me to do.
Yeah.
And they were like, oh, you can clean that, power cleans.
Yeah.
You can get up under that. And I'm like, what's the risk of me getting up under this? Even I might feel good like that I did it, but is my arthritis going to act up? Because, I have carpal tunnel. I'm sorry, my carpal tunnel for my family.
Yeah.
So I have wrist issues. I can't do all the lifts here. I don't bring my elbows up here. I want to, but I can't. Right. I won't lift over a certain amount because I'm like, I'm just doing this for recreation.
Right,
You know what I mean?
exactly.
I just want to look good. I'm not trying to beat nobody,
Right.
And so then I have to like stop myself because I remember doing, one of my trainers had me do the jumping push-ups.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I can do those. But I also know that I have carpal tunnel. Right. And I did those and then couldn't work out or do push-ups for the next like 2 months.
Right.
And I was like, okay, I should have, known my limits. And so I think, with anything, with moderation is required.
With anything, literally but this applies to anything in life, right? I mean, it can be, literally anything. Just because every type of clothes is out there doesn't mean we all should be wearing it all, right? Or what have you. I'm allergic to wool. So there could be a beautiful wool sweater. I'm not going to wear it. It's not right for me. It's the same thing, right? And so for me, I knew that I was not to do that. By the way, I did all 3 of my bodybuilding competitions without doing heavy squats.
Oh, wow.
There's plenty of ways to build your booty and your legs without squats. Squats is an incredible exercise. And I still do it. Light weights, light for me, I'll say. But you don't have to do everything. And you can't say, it's not smart to say, if I don't do this thing, I can't get this physique. There's so many different ways. And whatever you can't do, there's 10 other things you can do.
Dianna, I love that. Is there anything you want to leave with our audience, Dianna? A message, something that you feel like that you want them to walk away from knowing?
Yeah, for me, it's about intentional living. And that I really believe, and I operate from the fundamental places that we can design a life that we are excited about living. Now, someone might say, well, but I have to go to this job that I don't like or what have you. Okay, that's fine. Continue your job. But what is something that you can do for yourself? So whether that is thinking about how you eat to be able to give yourself more energy, whether that is starting a weightlifting program, whether that is if you want to have a new career, okay, we'll start studying at night, or even the groups of friends that you have. So the whole thing to me is about intentional living. And it's not about having some big leap that where you are today, overnight you have to be in the next place. I think that is sort of the frustration sometimes as people, as visionaries, right? You see the big vision and you want to get there right now. That's not the way it works. And if you do it that way, you're probably going to be burnt out and not enjoy the journey. But every single day, asking yourself, what is something I could do today that's going to put me closer to the place that I want to get to? And how do you know where you want to get to? Part of it is vision boarding. Part of it is meeting with incredible, inspiring people, watching people's Instagrams, right?
Yes.
And I get inspired by your Instagram all the time. And I'm like,
you're getting inspired by it. So I want to, before we close out, Dianna, you did something that I think will revolutionize the way that I plan for the rest of my life. Yeah. You had a reel on Instagram talking about, okay, so all of my business owners, they've done their annual plans, but what is your life plan?
Yes.
How many friends do you want to have dinner with next year? How many girls trips do you want to go on? How many dates do you want to go on with your boo? What do you want your kids to learn? What do you want? Like the things that at the end of the day actually matter, we don't plan for. We wait for them to happen. Or we wait to be invited somewhere. We wait for someone else to have these demands of our life that then determine who we are. Sure. But we actually don't actively plan our personal lives annually. And that blew my mind. Mm-hmm. And it's annual planning is a step. I love vision boarding, but it's a step beyond that. Because it's not the vision. It's okay, I had the vision. I know I want to go, but let me put pen to paper and let me put that on my calendar. If I say that I want more joy and I want to go skating more, putting skating on my calendar monthly on a Friday when I can go, regardless of who will go with me. If I say that I want to learn French, downloading the Duolingo app and making sure I do it before I go to bed at night. And those are things I have forgotten and thinking that money and my job and the business is so much more important than everything else, So thank you for that.
For sure. I'm so glad that spoke to you. I just want to give one small kind of a tactical tip is if you think about in this whole thing about strategic planning and also intentional living, think about your life accounts. So you've got relationship, you've got your career or your business, you've got your children if you have those, you have your friendship, you have your spirituality. Pick what the accounts are that are important to you and literally go through and say, okay, where is the state of this account now and where do I want it to be? And then therefore you put actions towards it and then put those things in your calendar. It's pretty amazing.
That's so good. Is my relationship with my sons where I want it to be? Is with my partner, with my friends? And if it's not, what's missing and how can we improve that? I hadn't done that. That's another, leveling up for me. Thank you so much, Dianna. Oh my gosh. That was an amazing episode. Thank you so much for tuning into Fox After 40. And please make sure to comment, like, and subscribe and let Dianna know how much you loved this episode. Thank you so much. I'll see you guys next time.